Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. We got some good fantasy nuggets for the upcoming Natsu Basho, so let's get right into it. We'll pair up Terunofuji and Takakeisho since they're the only ones at their respective ranks. Teru is the obvious and correct choice here. The one thing Takakeisho had over Teru in most Bashos was greater reliability, but coming off a knee injury of his own, it's hard to say if that's the case here. Adding that Teru is coming back to steamroll everyone or die trying, and the only reason not to pick Teru is if you're Nostradamus and you know he'll be gone in 5 days. Sekiwake looks like a pick'em amongst the 4 guys, but I don't think that's the case. As well as Daisho has fought in the last 2 tournaments, he hasn't shown much ability to win in any way other than steamrolling guys. As motivating as a reasonable Ozeki run should be, Kiribayama showed the limits of that strategy on day 15 in May. Granted, everyone knew this strategy and almost no one could stop it, but one-trick ponies are always vulnerable no matter how good they are at the trick. For Wakamoto Haru, apart from getting surprise blasted by Mitakeumi, he only lost to tippy top-level guys, but he was also fortunate enough to dodge Takakeisho, ended up with matchups against Endo and Hokuto Fuji, and doesn't have to fight his brother. The overall slate may not be much tougher this time, but right now he appears to need a slightly more favorable schedule than the others to keep up with wins. I expect him to stick at Sekiwake, but you want at least 10 wins from this rank, and I don't think that's a given from him. That leaves Kiri and Hoshoryu. I don't think there's a wrong answer between these two. Kiri's been better lately both because of his personal improvement and Hoshoryu's sprained ankle in January, but the ankle should be better now. I'm going with Kiri because it seems unthinkable he won't get at least 10 wins, and I'll feel less dumb if Hoshoryu wins more than I will if I pick Nephew and Kiri wins more. Komusubi is a coin flip. Shodai finally reminded us what he can do when he actually spends a whole basho trying to put his ridiculous strength to work, but Kota Nawaka is good even when he's bad. If you have to pick one of them, either is fine, but if you're playing something like Kachi Clash and they're mixed with the Sekiwake, choose any of the Sekiwake over these guys. Since different fantasy games use different brackets for Maegashira wrestlers and some don't use any at all, we'll just talk about the good picks from the division as a whole and hope that covers all the games you might play. The one gimme pick is Asanoyama. He's an ex-Ozeki ranked Maegashira 14, and as was pointed out to me when I suggested he didn't look as good as he could, Terunofuji did worse than 13-2 in Haijurio before raffle stomping his way to Yokozuna. Asanoyama is surrounded by guys who are going to finish from 6 to 9 wins, and anything less than 10 for him would be a failure of epic proportions. I got 3 80-20s here: Takayasu, Kinbozan, and Onisho. By 80-20, I mean they have an 80% chance of crushing and a 20% chance of things going terribly, terribly wrong. Takayasu's past couple years have been a revolving door of smashing everyone, getting hurt, then coming back to repeat the cycle. His mental game has been discussed ad infinitum, but that's not really a concern here. If he chokes fighting for a Yusho, he's already done well enough to make him a good fantasy pick. Onisho isn't on an injury cycle really, but after going Kyujo with a knee injury, it's really a matter of how healthy he is. If he's okay, he has a lot of juicy matchups waiting for him. Kinbozan's 20% isn't about an injury to him, but rather someone above him in the rankings. Right now, he's 1 spot outside the top 16. He's slated to fight Terunofuji and Daisho, but that's it unless record matchups demand more. Apart from that, he's almost entirely set to fight down in rank, and even though there are a lot of veterans in that mid-division pack, many of them are known to be hurt and may simply not be a match for him. If everyone in the high ranks stays healthy, at least long enough for him to maintain that schedule, he should do well, possibly really well. If someone gets hurt early and he's staring down a full or near full Sanyaku run, things get a lot dicier. If you want a simply reliable pick, Abi's probably your best option. Even looking potentially weakened or hurt last Basho, he managed to grind out 9 wins, and at this point 8 wins should be a consistent expectation for him. The fact he catches Teru and Takakeisho early isn't even that much of a downside. He's 2-2 lifetime against Teru and 6-3 against the hamster. Other reasonable options are Tamawashi and Hokuseiho. Tamawashi doesn't have amazing matchups, but he's in with a bunch of guys who are hurt or have suffered recent injuries. He looked doomed from the start in March, so as long as he's not seriously injured himself, the reduced competition and generally balanced matchup list sets him up for at least a Kachikoshi, maybe more. Hokuseiho should be capable of more for sure, but he still needs to evolve his game. Right now he can physically overpower a lot of guys, See what he did to Kotoeko and Ura in the last tournament? But he's vulnerable against those who have enough physicality of their own to stand up to him and find a way to win. Ryuden is probably the most injury-dependent pick. This is assuming he was hurt, of course, but it's hard to see a guy go from 9 wins to 2 against effectively the same competition and not assume an injury was at work. Without knowing any details, though, it's hard to know what to expect. A healthy Ryuden should go 9 wins minimum at his rank with these guys around him, but there might be more risk in the pick than some people are comfortable with. Finally, let's tag Ichiyamamoto as a wild card. He's clearly not a mid-Maegashira wrestler, but worse for him is the fact that he mostly fought down in rank last Basho and still only managed 4 wins. He has to face a lot of the same guys again, so this might go poorly. Then again, he also fought a lot of those guys when he went 10-5 in January. He's very streaky in a part of the division where we're gonna see a lot of guys toe the Kachikoshi borderline in the last couple days. If you want the safest guy for either 7 or 8 wins, take Kotoeko or Oho. But if you're willing to risk a pick that might get 5 wins for a better upside of getting 10 wins, Ichiyamamoto is your guy. If you need more picks than this, say if you're playing Hoshitori and need 13, there are a lot of guys who are almost guaranteed to finish between 6 and 9, and it's hard to figure out which end of that tiny spectrum they're liable to fall on. Everyone from rank 12 down outside of Asanoyama is basically a coin flip in that respect. But if you need picks to avoid, I would stay away from Endo, Ura, Nishikigi, and Kota Shoho. Endo isn't built for a full Joy schedule anymore. Ura and Nishikigi are either going to start slowly and not do well, or start strong and get clapped by the Senyaku over the last third of the Basho, and Kota Shoho has some difficult matchups along with being 2 injuries away from the Joy. Personally, I would also avoid Midori Fuji, Nishiki Fuji, and Mitakeumi, although there's a bit more light at the end of the tunnel for them. Midori has proven he can hang in the Joy, but not with a great record. 9 wins would be shocking, and you should be able to get more. Nishiki Fuji is probably more physically able to stick with the big boys than Midori, but he got smacked around in his one previous trip to this level and hasn't yet shown that he's likely to change that. And Mitakeumi could do pretty well now that he's out of the Joy, but the fact is we don't know just how injured he is. What cuts against him, for me, is that a lot of the guys around him have also been Joy regulars recently. His competition is mostly worse in terms of health rather than ability. Maybe that allows him to do really well, but it's risky unless you need to fill out a large lineup. Alright, that'll do it for our Natsu 2023 fantasy suggestions. Remember, the Super Banzuke games are all open to play. Check out the link in the description, and I will see you on the leaderboard.